Hello, everyone, and welcome to my B1 Low Intermediate English course. In this module, you will learn the comparative and superlative form for adjectives and adverbs. At the end, you'll get to practice what you just learned with a few sample exercises. Let's get started. All right, so we'll look briefly at this table here about comparative and superlative adjectives. So, um, so there are some rules here as far as syllables. So, for a one-syllable adjective, such as old, cheap, or high, to make the comparative, we add er. So, older, cheaper, higher. And then for the superlative, we add est. The oldest, the cheapest, or the highest. Um, all right, so for a one syllable ends in a consonant, vowel consonant, such as hot, big, thin. What we do is double the last letter, so hotter. So we have two T's, and then that's the comparative. For the superlative, it's the same. It's hottest, but with two T's. Same with big, bigger, biggest, thin, thinner, thinnest. So we're doubling the last consonant here. All right, and for syllables ending in Y, here's what we do. For example, healthy or happy. We change the Y to an I and then add ER. Healthier for superlative, healthiest. Okay, same with happy, changes to happier for comparative, and then happiest for superlative. All right, so um, we have when we have two or more syllables here, um, like we have famous or generous. What we do is instead of adding er or est, we say more for comparative and and the most for superlative. So famous, more famous, the most famous, or generous, more generous, or the most generous. There are some that are irregular adjectives here. Um, Good, bad, and far. For example, good becomes better, right? and then and then we have the best. So we will look more at this on the next slides. All right. Okay, let's look at the comparative form. So we use the comparative form of the adjective to compare two things. So for example, white meat is healthier than red meat. So we always use than for comparatives. Traveling by bus is more comfortable than traveling by train. So we're comparing the two um, activities, traveling by bus and traveling by train. All right, let's talk about using less than and more than. Besides more than, we can also use the form less, an adjective, and than. So less is the opposite of more. For example, Peter is less considerate than Marta. This means Marta is more considerate. Then we have gold is more expensive than silver. This means silver is less expensive um, than gold. So, all right. Okay, let's look at not as an adjective and as. So we can also use the form not as plus an adjective as in the comparative. So, for example, Jane isn't or is not as considerate as Kevin. And this means Kevin is more considerate than James. And then we have eating vegetables is as healthy as drinking water. So this means that these two habits or activities are equally healthy. All right. So now let's look at than me or than I am. So after than or as, and then as, we use an object pronoun such as me, you, him, etc. Or a subject pronoun, I, you, he, she, etc. Plus an auxiliary verb. For example, my sister is taller than me, or my sister is taller than I am. So, for example, um, I am, well, that's functioning as the auxiliary verb here, the be verb. So, same here, even just the is. Um, so is taller than me. All right, so next one. Okay, then we have much, a lot, a bit, more. All right, so before the comparative, more, or using an ER, we can use much, a lot, or a bit. So, for example, he's a bit taller than me, or Florence is much more interesting than pizza. Or we have this car is a lot more expensive than our last car. So then we have any or no more than. Okay, so we can use any or no plus a comparative, um, like any better, no faster, any more expensive, etc. Um, we use any in negative sentences and no with positive verbs. So, for example, your performance was no better than mine. Or we can say your performance wasn't any better than mine. All right. Okay, now let's talk about superlative adjectives. So we use the superlative form of an adjective or adverb to compare more than two things. So we have the first form, the most, plus an adjective, or we have est ending in. Yeah, so we'll talk about this. So after the superlative, the most plus adjective or est plus a noun, we use in or in plus names of places or singular words for groups of people. For example, class, school, team, family, etc. So, for example, she is the best student of the class. Now compare this with this one. It's the same. She is the best student in the class. So we can't say of, it's supposed to be in. All right, so, and then we have he's the tallest in the family. And then Messi is the most popular football player in the world. So this is expresses superlative form, comparing these people or um, things or places. So, all right. Okay, we normally use of plus periods of time or a number of people. For example, of the year, of my life, of my brothers, of the students, etc. So, for example, it was the best evening of my life. So, we're comparing this to all the other evenings here of my life. Or we have I am the tallest of my brothers. It means comparing myself with my brothers. I would be the tallest. And then we have January was the coldest month of the year. Now let's talk about the most I have ever. So we often use this superlative with the present perfect tense and ever. So for example, this is the funniest movie I have ever watched. So this kind of talks about a unique experience. uh, you can't compare it to the other experiences like that. All right, and then we have she is the most beautiful woman I have ever seen. All right, so that means I haven't ever seen a woman this beautiful. All right, okay, then we have the my name of person's best or most plus an adjective. So before this superlative, we always use the or my, your, his, its, etc., or the person's name. So for example, among these three brands, this one is the best. So, and that one is superlative for good. And then we have this is my most expensive dress. So comparing all my dresses, this is the most expensive. All right, and then Jim, this is Paul's best friend. So name of a person, comparing his friends, this one is the best. Hi, nice to meet you. And then let's talk about the least. The opposite of the most is the least. So we have here, he is the least hardworking student in the class. Playing games is the least important activity in my plans. Or in this selection of jackets, the black one was the least expensive. All right. Okay, now let's compare actions using adverbs. So we can use the comparative or superlative forms of adverbs to compare actions. Here's an example. She drives fast, but I drive faster. Or he plays well, but I play better than him. Or they they all work hard, but you work the hardest. Okay, so and then with adverbs ending in ly, you must always use more to form the comparative and most to form the superlative. So for example, you'll see which one's correct and which one isn't. So she speaks quietlier than her boss, or she speaks more quietly than her boss. You see, the top one isn't correct. We have to say more quietly. And then he cooks well, but slowlier than his workmates. All right, so that one obviously isn't correct. It should be he cooks well, but more slowly than his workmates. All right. Okay, so for adverbs that have the same form as adjectives, the comparative and superlative forms are like adjectives. So you add er to form the comparative and est to form the superlative. The most common of these adverbs are late, later, early, earlier, fast, faster, hard, harder, and long, longer. All right, so up here. So for example, he works harder than me. Or she always arrives earlier than her boss. It, and we can say it took us longer than usual to arrive because of the traffic. And my sisters eat breakfast late, but I eat breakfast the latest. Comparing between my sisters, I eat breakfast the latest time. All right, well, let's move on to a few sample exercises and check what we know so far. Okay, so we'll do this exercise first, multiple choice. So let's try number one. This tea tastes a bit, so we've got bitterest than, more bitter than, or more bitter that the other. So which one is correct here? So if you chose option B, more bitter than the other, that would be the correct one. So, all right. Two, she seems, since she got divorced, happier, more happy, or more happier? Okay. So we know that with happy, two syllable, it's not necessary to add more. So if you chose option A, happier, that would be the correct answer. Okay, number three. Could you speak slowlier, most slowly, or more slowly, please? I don't understand you. Okay, so which one looks correct? All right, if you chose option C, more slowly, that you would be correct in that. So just not not as the most slowly. I mean, that would be extreme, but yeah. Okay, let's try number four. Um, choose we're going to choose two correct sentences here. So, all right, so we have your car isn't any cheaper than ours. Your car isn't as cheaper as ours. Or your car is no cheaper than ours. Okay, so we can say, well, option A, your car isn't any cheaper than ours. And what's the other correct one? Your car is, okay, so option C, your car is no cheaper than ours. So, all right. One more here. So we've got the economy is getting, okay, so more and more worse, every day badder, or worse and worse. Okay, so it looks to be, if you choose option C, um, worse and worse, that would be correct. We can't, this is an irregular adjective, so it's bad, worse, and the worst. So we don't use more in front of this. So, all right, let's look at the next exercise quickly. Okay, so we'll complete these sentences with comparative or superlative for these words in brackets. So we've got this exam was easy than the exam in May. Okay, so this is comparative. So we've got, remember how we spell this? Easy, we're changing the Y to an I. So easier. All right. Number two, you should drive. So slowly or you'll have an accident. Okay, so again, we're doing comparing here. Um, just like the sentence speak more slowly, we're going to use more slowly, not slowlier. All right, so number three, my new home is nearer from work than the old one. So with near, we're gonna add just what? Just add an er. So nearer from work than the old one. All right, one more. The test wasn't as difficult as I thought. So we're gonna, this is gonna remain the same. We're not gonna use less. Okay, wasn't as difficult as I thought. All right. Exercise one though here is a paragraph. So we're going to do a couple of these, see how we do. So we've got, hi Susan, I'm having a wonderful time in Los Angeles. The weather is what and drier. So we're going to use a comparative here, right? So hotter with one T, hottest, or hotter with two T's. Which one? All right. So it sounds like hotter with two T's. All right. And drier than, that, or as in England, right? So let's see. All right. So if you chose than, that would be the correct form for comparing. Okay. And Americans are friendlier than what? Um, our, us, or we. Okay. Well, if you chose the middle one, us, that would be the correct pronoun here, not we or our. So, all right. So one more here. The food is better here. And I mean, it's not the same. Okay, so as, that, or than the food in England at all. All right, so if you chose the first one, as, that would be the correct form, not the same as the food in England at all. All right, excellent job on these exercises. Um, you do have to pay attention to the spelling and uh, changes and as far as number of syllables, though. But otherwise, you all did a great job. So shows that you listen well. All right, well, I can help you learn to speak English with more confidence. I'm TESOL certified. I teach native U.S. English. I'm experienced in online tutoring, and I work with all learning levels and most age groups. So whether you need help with grammar, speaking, vocabulary, or writing, or any other area, you've come to the right place. Well, thank you all for watching my video and happy learning.